Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Facts channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. Maybe you had a long day, or maybe you're the kind of person who likes falling asleep to invisible mysteries rather than counting sheep. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. Let your mind relax, your breathing slow, and your body grow light as glass drifting through water. Because tonight, we're exploring transparent animals. The creatures that have learned to disappear into their world by becoming nearly invisible. We'll drift from jellyfish that shimmer like living water to fish made of crystal, discovering how life can exist without color, without opacity, without the solid presence we usually associate with living things. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you, or at least spark curiosity as you drift off. Before we begin, if this helps you unwind, consider liking and subscribing. One sleepy soul at a time. Now, let's begin. The glass frog sits on a leaf in the rainforest, and when you look at it from below, you can see its heart beating inside its chest. Its skin on the belly side is completely transparent, revealing bones, organs, and blood vessels arranged like a diagram in a biology textbook. The top of the frog remains green, camouflaging it against leaves when viewed from above, but the transparent underside makes it nearly invisible from below, predators seeing only leaf through frog. The heart pulses red, a tiny engine visible through crystal flesh, pumping blood that you can watch moving through translucent vessels. These frogs live in trees along streams, their calls soft and high-pitched, and when they rest, they become windows into the mechanics of life itself. This leads to something even more remarkable about how transparency develops. Glass frog tadpoles are also transparent, swimming in streams with their internal organs visible through their skin. As they grow and metamorphose into frogs, they develop the pigmentation on their backs while maintaining transparency below. The selective transparency serves different purposes at different angles, solving multiple survival challenges with a single adaptation. During the day, the frogs sleep pressed flat against leaves, their transparent bellies eliminating any shadow that might give away their position. At night, they wake and hunt for insects, their transparency less useful in darkness, but their camouflaged backs protecting them from nocturnal predators that hunt from above. Not all transparent animals live in rainforests. The glass squid drifts through the deep ocean, its body nearly invisible except for the light organs that dot its surface like stars. These squid have transparent skin, transparent muscles, and even transparent digestive systems, though their eyes remain dark. Two spots of solid color in otherwise crystalline bodies. The glass squid can adjust the light from its photophores to match the faint illumination filtering from above, eliminating its silhouette when viewed from below. This technique, called counter-illumination, allows the squid to hunt and avoid predators in the deep sea's twilight zone, where transparency alone is not enough for invisibility. The squid hovers in the water column, tentacles trailing below, almost impossible to see unless it moves, or its lights betray its presence. Beyond this, there's another mystery of transparent animals in the open ocean. The salp is a barrel-shaped creature that looks like a transparent tube with a pulse, contracting its body to pump water through itself and move forward in gentle pulses. Salps are not jellyfish, though they resemble them, but are actually more closely related to vertebrates than to invertebrates. They are transparent bodies containing a primitive notochord. They filter phytoplankton from water, straining microscopic plants through mucus nets inside their bodies, and these feeding structures are visible through their walls like machinery behind glass. Salps often form long chains, individuals linking together in formations that can stretch dozens of feet, each member connected to its neighbors, the whole chain pulsing in coordination. When you see a salp chain, you see multiple animals acting as one, their transparent bodies creating a living line of nearly invisible coordination. While salps filter feed passively, the transparent larval fish actively hunts despite being barely visible. Many fish begin life as transparent larvae, drifting in the plankton before developing adult coloration. These glass-like babies have transparent bodies with visible spines and minimal pigmentation. sometimes just two dark spots for eyes floating in a barely perceptible outline. The leptocephalous larva of eels is so flat and transparent that it resembles a willow leaf. And for years, scientists did not realize these strange transparent creatures were actually baby eels. The larvae drift in ocean currents, feeding on tiny particles, growing slowly over months or years before metamorphosing into recognizable juvenile fish. During their transparent phase, they are vulnerable but nearly invisible, existing in the open ocean as ghosts among the plankton. This leads to something even more remarkable about larval transparency. The transparency serves a dual purpose, providing both camouflage and reduced energy costs. Producing pigments requires energy and building materials, and a developing larva in nutrient-poor water must allocate its limited resources carefully. By remaining transparent, the larva saves energy that would go into coloration and instead channels those resources into growth and development. When the fish reaches a size where transparency no longer provides adequate camouflage, it begins producing pigments, developing the colors and patterns of its adult form. The timing of this transition varies by species, some fish remaining transparent for weeks, others for months, each species balancing the benefits of invisibility against the advantages of adult coloration. Not all transparent animals live in water. The transparent wing butterfly exists, though calling it transparent is misleading since only its wings lack color. These butterflies of the genus Greta have wings covered with transparent scales, rather than the colored scales typical of butterflies. The scales still refract light, giving the wings a subtle shimmer, but they remain see-through, allowing the butterfly to blend with its background as it flies through rainforest understory. The body of the butterfly remains dark, so in flight, you see a small dark body with barely visible wings, as if the butterfly is defying gravity without obvious means of support. The transparent wings reduce the butterfly's visibility to birds that hunt by sight, and the subtle shimmer of the wings might confuse predators about the butterfly's exact position and speed. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how transparent animals avoid being completely invisible. The jellyfish pulse through water, their bells contracting and relaxing in rhythmic motion. And while many jellyfish are quite visible, some species achieve near-perfect transparency. These crystal jellyfish have bells so clear that you can see straight through them to the water beyond, their presence revealed only by slight distortions in the light and by the faint tracery of their internal structures. The jellyfish trail tentacles behind them, these appendages often more visible than the bell, and the tentacles contain stinging cells used for capturing prey. When the jellyfish encounters a small fish or crustacean, the tentacles fire their nematocysts, tiny harpoons that inject toxins, and the prey is drawn up to the mouth at the center of the bell's underside, the process visible through the transparent tissue. This leads to something even more remarkable about how jellyfish maintain transparency. Most jellyfish are more than 95% water, their bodies containing minimal solid tissue and almost no structures that would scatter light. The mesoglea, the jelly-like substance between the inner and outer cell layers, is nearly pure water held together by a sparse protein matrix. This minimal structure makes jellyfish fragile, easily torn or damaged, but it also makes them energetically cheap to build and maintain. A jellyfish requires far less food than a fish of equivalent size, because it consists mostly of organized water rather than dense tissue. The transparency is thus not just camouflage, but a consequence of an entire life strategy based on minimizing material and energy requirements. While jellyfish drift passively with currents, the transparent shrimp actively swims through coral reefs, its body nearly invisible except for the food visible in its digestive tract. These cleaner shrimp are not completely transparent, but are transparent enough that they blend almost perfectly with their background, especially when viewed at certain angles. The shrimp eat parasites and dead tissue from fish, establishing cleaning stations where fish come to be groomed. The shrimp wave their antennae to attract customers, and fish that would normally eat shrimp-sized creatures instead hover patiently while the shrimp climb onto them, and pick parasites from their scales, gills, and mouths. The shrimp's transparency may help reassure the fish, the barely visible cleaner appearing less like prey and more like a moving part of the reef itself. Not all transparent shrimp are cleaners. The glass shrimp of freshwater lakes and rivers is so transparent that when placed in a clear container, it becomes nearly impossible to see. These shrimp are smaller than their marine cousins, often only an inch or two long, and they inhabit aquatic vegetation, where their transparency makes them blend perfectly with clear water and green plants. The shrimp feed on algae and detritus, their digestive systems visible as dark lines through their bodies. When food passes through the gut, you can watch it moving from mouth to tail, the shrimp appearing to be mostly empty space surrounding a slowly moving meal. These shrimp are popular in aquariums not despite their transparency, but because of it. Aquarists enjoying the strange beauty of animals that barely appear to exist. Beyond this, there's another mystery of bioluminescent transparent animals. The comb jelly, or cytenophore, is a transparent creature that creates rainbow light as it swims, not through bioluminescence but through light refracting off the cilia that cover its body. These beating cilia propel the comb jelly through water, and they diffract light into spectral colors that shimmer along the comb rows, creating moving rainbows that pulse with the beating rhythm. The body of the comb jelly remains transparent, but these rainbow flashes make it visible and beautiful, decoration on an otherwise invisible creature. When comb jellies swarm in the ocean, they create fields of moving color, thousands of transparent bodies, marked by flowing rainbows. The display visible from boats as the jellies drift past in the current. This leads to something even more remarkable about comb jelly diversity. There are more than 100 species of comb jellies, and while all share the basic transparent body plan and ciliated comb rows, they vary dramatically in shape. Some are spherical, others elongated like ribbons that can extend several feet. Some have elaborate oral arms or tentacles, while others have almost no appendages at all. The sea walnut comb jelly looks like an elongated balloon, while the Venus's girdle is a flat ribbon that undulates through water like a transparent flag. Despite their jellyfish-like appearance, comb jellies are not closely related to true jellyfish and represent an entirely separate lineage of animal life that independently evolved transparency and a gelatinous body plan. Not all comb jellies are harmless plankton feeders. Some species hunt other gelatinous animals using sticky cells rather than stinging cells to capture prey. The predatory comb jelly burrow has a large mouth that can stretch wide enough to engulf other comb jellies whole. The predator's transparent body, containing the transparent body of its prey, a scene of invisible predation visible only because digestive processes begin to break down the victim's tissues. These predators swim actively through the water column, searching for the telltale rainbow flashes of other comb jellies, and when they locate prey, they accelerate and engulf it in a single swift motion. The entire drama plays out in transparency, visible mainly through absence and distortion rather than through solid presence. While comb jellies hunt each other, the transparent sea cucumber crawls across the deep sea floor, its body more opaque than truly transparent, but still translucent enough to see internal organs through its skin. These strange creatures move on tube feet, slowly traversing the bottom while feeding on organic particles in sediment. Their bodies are soft and flexible, and when disturbed, some species can expel their internal organs through their anus, leaving these behind to distract predators, while the sea cucumber escapes. The expelled organs regenerate over several weeks, a dramatic defense that relies on the sea cucumber's ability to rebuild itself. The transparency or translucency allows researchers to see the organs regrowing inside the animal, watching as new tissue forms and organizes into functional structures. Beyond this, there's another mystery of transparent pteropods, which are sea snails that swim through open ocean using wing-like lobes of tissue. These animals, sometimes called sea butterflies, have transparent shells and translucent bodies, and they feed on phytoplankton, and other microscopic prey. The pteropods swim in a flying motion, their wing lobes flapping to propel them through water, and they are abundant enough in some areas that they form an important food source for fish, seabirds, and even some whales. When pteropods die, their shells sink to the seafloor, accumulating in deep ocean sediments as layers of calcium carbonate that over millions of years can become limestone. These tiny transparent creatures thus contribute to the geological record, their remains preserved in stone long after the animals themselves have vanished. This leads to something even more remarkable about how ocean acidification affects transparent shelled animals. As carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid that lowers the ocean's pH, making it harder for animals to build calcium carbonate shells. Pteropods and other shelled plankton are among the first animals to show effects of acidification, their shells becoming thinner and more fragile, sometimes even dissolving while the animal is still alive. Researchers can see these effects by examining shell thickness and looking for pitting and erosion on shell surfaces. The transparency of pteropod shells makes it easier to study these changes, as researchers can see through the shell to examine its structure and watch how it changes as pH decreases. These small, transparent animals thus serve as early warning indicators of ocean change. Not all transparent animals have shells. The transparent squid Cranchia has no hard parts at all, except its beak, the small sharp mouthparts used for biting prey. This deep-sea squid has a body like blown glass, perfectly transparent except for the eyes and a few internal organs, and it hangs vertically in the water column with its tentacles pointed downward, looking like an elaborate glass ornament, suspended in darkness. The squid's posture reduces its silhouette when viewed from below, and its light organs positioned on its lower surface provide counter-illumination that further reduces visibility. During the day, the squid hangs motionless, conserving energy in the food-poor depths, and at night, it may swim upward to hunt in more productive surface waters before descending again at dawn. While squid hang vertically, the transparent amphipod Phronima lives inside the empty bodies of salps, hollowing out the transparent barrel and using it as both home and transportation. The amphipod is itself transparent, and living inside a transparent host makes it doubly invisible, a ghost inside a ghost. Female Phronima raise their young inside these repurposed salp bodies, the developing amphipods visible as tiny transparent forms clustered inside the larger transparent tube. The female steers her floating home by swimming with her legs, moving the entire structure through the water while staying protected inside. When the young are large enough, they abandon the salp and drift away to find their own homes, and the mother may find a new salp to hollow out and inhabit. Beyond this, there's another mystery of deep-sea transparent fish. The barrel-eye fish, also called the spookfish, has a transparent dome covering the top of its head, and inside this dome are the fish's tubular eyes, which point upward to watch for prey silhouettes against the faint light filtering from above. The eyes themselves are green, filled with pigment that enhances sensitivity to blue-green wavelengths that penetrate deepest into ocean water. For years, scientists only saw dead barrel-eye fish brought up in nets. Their transparent domes collapsed and their eyes displaced, making their anatomy difficult to understand. Only when researchers observed living barrel-eye fish with submersibles did they discover the transparent dome and understand how these fish position their eyes. The barrel-eye can rotate its eyes forward when it needs to see its mouth to feed, but most of the time they point upward, watching through the transparent shield. This leads to something even more remarkable about how the barrel-eye coordinates its transparent dome with its behavior. The dome is filled with transparent fluid that protects the eyes while remaining optically clear, allowing the fish to look upward without exposing its sensitive eyes to potential damage. The fish itself is mostly dark, with only the dome transparent, creating a small window in an otherwise opaque body. This limited transparency serves a specific purpose, rather than providing overall camouflage. The transparent dome, functioning more like a built-in visor than like camouflage, The barrel eye typically lives at depths where bioluminescence is the main light source, and its upward-pointing eyes watch for the bioluminescent flashes of prey passing overhead. The transparent dome, allowing constant upward surveillance, while the fish hangs motionless in the water. Not all barrel-eyed fish are so specialized. The juvenile filefish begins life as a transparent larva, and in some species, the transparency persists into adulthood as translucency. These fish are not perfectly clear but are translucent enough that light passes through them, softening their outline and making them harder to see against varied backgrounds. The filefish lives among sargassum seaweed and coral, and its body shape mimics the leaves and branches of its habitat. The combination of camouflaging shape and partial transparency makes the fish blend remarkably well with its surroundings, though it never achieves the perfect invisibility of truly transparent species. As the fish matures, it gradually develops more pigmentation, becoming less transparent while developing colors and patterns that provide different types of camouflage. While fish develop camouflage, the transparent icefish takes a completely different approach by eliminating hemoglobin from its blood. Most vertebrates have red blood because of hemoglobin, the iron-containing protein that carries oxygen. But Antarctic icefish have colorless blood, their plasma carrying dissolved oxygen without the help of hemoglobin. The fish's heart is large, pumping the oxygen-poor blood rapidly through the body to compensate for its reduced oxygen-carrying capacity. The icefish's gills and skin also absorb oxygen directly from water, supplementing what the blood provides. The result is a fish with pale, almost transparent flesh and blood that runs clear rather than red. Adaptations to extreme cold water, where oxygen dissolves more readily and where metabolic rates run slowly. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how icefish avoid freezing. Antarctic waters can drop below the normal freezing point of fish blood, yet icefish remain active and unfrozen. They produce antifreeze glycoproteins that prevent ice crystals from forming in their blood and tissues, allowing them to survive in water cold enough to kill most other fish. The antifreeze proteins bind to any ice crystals that begin to form, preventing them from growing larger, and they lower the freezing point of body fluids by several degrees. Combined with the absence of red blood cells, which might serve as nucleation points for ice formation, these adaptations allow icefish to thrive in one of Earth's coldest marine environments. The fish's transparency or translucency may provide minimal benefit in these dark, ice-covered waters, but it persists as a consequence of their unusual physiology. This leads to something even more remarkable about transparent animals in polar regions. The transparent amphipod cystosoma has enormous eyes that cover most of its head, and its body is so transparent that the eyes appear to float independently in the water. These amphipods live in the open ocean, sometimes in polar waters, and their transparency makes them nearly invisible to predators. The huge eyes gather as much light as possible, allowing the amphipod to see in extremely dim conditions, and they may also serve to detect the bioluminescence of prey or predators. The amphipod's body is divided into segments, each visible mainly as a faint outline, and the legs extend from the body like articulated glass rods. When the amphipod swims, it appears to be mostly empty space, animated by purpose, legs and eyes moving through water with only the suggestion of a body connecting them. Not all transparent crustaceans have large eyes. The transparent krill swarm in enormous numbers in Antarctic waters, their bodies translucent green from the phytoplankton visible in their digestive tracts. These small shrimp-like animals form schools containing millions of individuals, and they migrate vertically each day, descending to deeper water during daylight hours and rising toward the surface at night. Their transparency provides some camouflage, but in their enormous swarms, individual invisibility matters less than group dynamics. The krill are important food for whales, seals, penguins, and many fish, and their populations form the foundation of Antarctic food webs. Each individual krill is mostly transparent, but their collective biomass is enormous, possibly exceeding the total mass of humans on Earth. While krill feed whales, The transparent arrow worm hunts other plankton, using its nearly invisible body to ambush prey. Arrow worms, or chetognaths, are torpedo-shaped predators with transparent bodies, armed with hooks that grasp prey. The worms dart through water with quick swimming bursts, then freeze in position, hanging motionless until small copepods or larval fish venture close. When prey approaches, the arrow worm strikes with sudden acceleration, grasping the victim with its hooks and drawing it to its mouth. The entire body of the arrow worm is transparent except for the gut, which becomes visible after feeding when it contains opaque prey. Between meals, the worm is nearly impossible to see, a perfectly camouflaged hunter drifting among its prey. Beyond this, there's another mystery of why transparency is so common in ocean plankton. The open ocean offers little shelter, and most plankton are small enough that they cannot outswim predators. Transparency provides crucial camouflage in this exposed environment, allowing planktonic animals to hide in plain sight. The evolution of transparency has occurred independently in multiple lineages, from jellyfish to fish larvae to crustaceans to mollusks, suggesting that it provides significant survival advantage in open water. The specific mechanisms for achieving transparency vary. Some animals producing transparent proteins, others having transparent shells, others minimizing body structures that would scatter light, but the result is similar across different species. This leads to something even more remarkable about the limits of transparency. No large animal is truly transparent because the volume of tissue eventually becomes too great for light to pass through without significant scattering and absorption. Even the most transparent animals develop opaque areas as they grow, and most transparent creatures are small, ranging from microscopic to a few inches in length. The largest transparent animals are certain jellyfish, which can reach several feet in diameter, but jellyfish cheat by being mostly water rather than tissue. A truly transparent whale or elephant is physically impossible given the constraints of biology and optics. Transparency works as a strategy mainly for small creatures living in well-lit environments, where being invisible provides more advantage than being large and powerful. Not all transparent animals remain transparent throughout their lives. Many species are transparent as larvae, but develop coloration as adults, the transparency serving mainly to protect vulnerable young stages. The transparency of larvae allows them to drift in the plankton without attracting predators, increasing their chances of surviving until they can settle and metamorphose. For some species, the larval stage lasts weeks or months, during which transparency is crucial for survival. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how transparency affects behavior. Transparent animals cannot easily see members of their own species, making social interactions and mate finding potentially difficult. Some transparent animals solve this problem by having small opaque spots or marks that serve as recognition signals, allowing individuals to identify each other against a transparent background. Others rely on bioluminescence, producing flashes of light that make them temporarily visible to potential mates, while remaining invisible to predators that do not recognize the specific flash pattern. Still others use chemical signals, releasing pheromones into the water that attract mates through scent rather than sight. The invisibility that protects also isolates, and transparent species have evolved various solutions to overcome this communication barrier. This leads to something even more remarkable about transparent animals with bioluminescence. The crystal jellyfish produces green fluorescent protein, or GFP, which scientists have borrowed and modified for use in research laboratories worldwide. When ultraviolet light hits the jellyfish's light-producing organs, the GFP absorbs the blue light and re-emits it as green, creating a glowing effect. Researchers isolated the gene that produces GFP and inserted it into other organisms, allowing them to track specific proteins and cells by making them glow green under ultraviolet light. This discovery revolutionized cell biology and earned its discoverers a Nobel Prize, all because scientists studied the glowing transparency of a jellyfish. The transparent body of the crystal jellyfish thus contributed not only to its own survival but to human understanding of biology. Not all glowing transparent animals use the same chemistry. The transparent comb jelly Menemyopsis produces bioluminescence through a different chemical reaction than jellyfish, and its light appears as blue-green flashes rather than steady glows. The comb jelly flashes when disturbed, possibly to startle predators or to attract larger predators that might eat whatever is attacking the comb jelly. This defensive bioluminescence is common in transparent animals, which otherwise lack visual defenses. The flash of light momentarily makes the transparent animal visible, but if the light successfully deters the attack, the temporary visibility is worth the risk. After flashing, the comb jelly returns to darkness and invisibility, drifting through water as if nothing had happened. While some transparent animals flash in defense, others use transparency to sneak up on prey. The transparent larvation builds a complex mucus house around itself, a transparent structure that filters food from water while protecting the tiny animal inside. The house has intricate chambers and passages, all built from mucus secreted by the larvation, and water is pumped through the filtering apparatus by the beating of the larvation's tail. When the filters clog with particles, the larvation abandons the house and builds a new one, the entire construction taking only a few hours. The discarded houses sink through the water column, carrying filtered particles toward the deep sea and providing food for bottom-dwelling creatures. The larvation itself is transparent, and its transparent house makes it doubly difficult to see, a barely visible animal inside a nearly invisible structure. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how complex behaviors arise in simple transparent animals. The transparent hydra is a tiny predator of freshwater ponds, its tube-like body anchored at one end with tentacles surrounding its mouth at the other. The hydra is simple enough that it lacks a brain, having only a nerve net distributed through its body. Yet it exhibits coordinated behavior, including feeding, moving, and reproducing. When a small water flea or worm touches the hydra's tentacles, stinging cells fire automatically, paralyzing the prey, and the tentacles bend to bring the prey to the mouth. The entire body then contracts, forcing the prey into the digestive cavity, where enzymes break it down. After feeding, the hydra may glide slowly to a new location by somersaulting, its tentacles reaching forward and attaching while its base releases and flips over. All of this happens without a brain, coordinated by the simple nerve net that connects all parts of the transparent body. This leads to something even more remarkable about hydra reproduction. The hydra can reproduce asexually by budding, growing small copies of itself that eventually detach and live independently. A bud appears as a small bump on the hydra's side, and this bump grows tentacles and a mouth, forming a complete miniature hydra still attached to the parent. Eventually, the bud pinches off and crawls away, genetically identical to its parent. The hydra can also reproduce sexually, developing testes and ovaries at different times to avoid self-fertilization. The fertilized eggs develop protective coatings and can survive freezing and drying, allowing hydra to persist through harsh conditions and recolonize ponds when favorable conditions return. The transparency of the hydra allows observers to watch these processes through the body wall, seeing buds form and eggs develop inside the living animal. Not all transparent animals are so simple. The transparent glass catfish has a complete vertebrate nervous system, including a brain, yet its flesh remains transparent enough to see the skeleton and internal organs. These fish live in schools in Southeast Asian rivers, and they orient themselves at angles to the current, hovering in place with minimal swimming effort. The backbone is clearly visible running down the center of the body, with ribs extending outward and the skull visible at the front. The swim bladder shows as a silvery shape inside the body, and the heart beats visibly in the chest. When the fish swims, you can watch its muscles contracting in waves along its body. The mechanics of swimming revealed as if the fish were a working model in a science museum. The transparency seems almost pedagogical, displaying anatomy that normally remains hidden beneath opaque skin. While glass catfish school in rivers, the transparent ghost catfish drifts in slow-moving waters, its body even more transparent than its cousins. This fish is so clear that when placed in an aquarium with plants, it virtually disappears, becoming visible mainly as a faint outline and a pair of eyes. The ghost catfish feeds on small invertebrates and organic particles, its transparent gut filling with food that temporarily makes the interior of the fish more visible. After digestion, the fish returns to near-perfect invisibility, a living window through which you can see the water beyond. Aquarists prize these fish for their unusual appearance, and the fish seem unbothered by observation, swimming calmly even when watched closely, secure in their transparency. Beyond this, there's another mystery of transparent fish in dark caves. Some cave fish are not just transparent but also blind, having lost their eyes over generations of evolution in permanent darkness. These fish are pale or transparent because pigmentation serves no purpose in environments without light, and the energy saved by not producing pigment can be allocated to other functions. The fish navigate by sensing water movements and pressure changes, their lateral line system detecting obstacles and prey in the darkness. The transparent skin reveals the organs inside, but in the cave's darkness, there is no one to see this display. The transparency exists not for camouflage, but as a consequence of relaxed selection, evolution removing what is no longer needed. This leads to something even more remarkable about how transparency evolves. Becoming transparent is not simple, requiring multiple coordinated changes in physiology and biochemistry. The animal must eliminate or reduce pigments, minimize light-scattering structures, and sometimes modify the refractive index of its tissues to prevent distortion. Different lineages have achieved transparency through different mechanisms, some by reducing the number of cells, others by making cells smaller, or rearranging them to minimize light scattering. Some transparent animals have blood that lacks red cells or hemoglobin, reducing the opacity that blood normally contributes. Each solution is unique, but all converge on the same result: a body that light passes through with minimal interruption. Not all parts of transparent animals can be transparent. Eyes must absorb light to function, so even the most transparent animals typically have opaque eyes. Some transparent animals minimize this visibility by having very small eyes, or by positioning them where they are less conspicuous. The transparent shrimp Periclymines has eyes at the end of stalks, and while the eyes themselves are dark, their small size and the shrimp's overall transparency still provide effective camouflage. The shrimp lives among coral and anemones, its transparency allowing it to blend with the complex background of the reef. When the shrimp moves, the eye stalks track motion in the environment, the only obviously solid parts of an otherwise ghostly form. While shrimp eyes remain visible, some transparent fish reduce the visibility of their eyes by surrounding them with reflective tissue that mirrors the environment. The fish's eyes look less like dark spots and more like mirrors, reflecting back whatever light hits them and blending with the surroundings. This trick works best in environments with varied lighting, where a mirror can reflect a constantly changing background. In laboratory aquaria with uniform lighting and plain backgrounds, the mirrored eyes become more noticeable. But in the wild, amid moving water and shifting light, they help the eyes disappear into the general shimmer of the ocean. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how transparent animals regulate their internal chemistry. Maintaining transparency requires keeping tissues free of particles that would scatter light, including crystals, pigments, and cellular debris. Some transparent animals have specialized cells that collect and sequester these light-scattering materials, concentrating them in small areas where they cause minimal optical disruption. Others continuously break down and recycle materials that might accumulate and reduce transparency. The maintenance of transparency is an ongoing process, requiring energy and attention, and if the animal stops actively maintaining its clarity, it gradually becomes more opaque as materials accumulate in tissues. This leads to something even more remarkable about seasonal changes in transparency. Some transparent animals become less transparent during breeding season, developing colors or patterns that attract mates or signal reproductive readiness. After breeding, they gradually return to transparency, the pigments fading or being reabsorbed. This temporary visibility increases predation risk, but the benefit of attracting mates apparently outweighs the danger. The glasswing butterfly, while always having transparent wings, develops more visible body colors during mating season, the usually cryptic insect becoming more apparent to both potential mates and potential predators. The balance between visibility and invisibility shifts with the animal's reproductive state. Transparency sacrificed when reproduction demands display. Not all transparent animals live in the ocean or in fresh water. The transparent scale insects are terrestrial, living on plants and feeding on sap. These tiny insects have bodies covered with waxy transparent scales that protect them while allowing them to blend with the plant surface. The scales refract light in ways that can make the insects appear almost invisible, especially on leaves or stems where light patterns are complex. Some scale insects are so well camouflaged that they appear to be part of the plant itself, bumps or textures, rather than separate organisms. The transparency and translucency serve double duty, providing both physical protection from the elements and visual camouflage from predators that hunt by sight. While scale insects stay motionless, the transparent aphid slowly walks across plant stems, its soft body like blown glass, filled with the sap it consumes. The aphid's digestive system is visible through its transparent cuticle, a dark line showing where food moves through the body. Aphids reproduce rapidly, and transparent females give birth to live young that are themselves transparent. Tiny copies emerging, already eating and growing. When aphid populations explode, the accumulated transparent bodies can cover entire plant stems, each individual nearly invisible, but their collective presence obvious. Predatory insects that feed on aphids can see through their transparent prey to spot other aphids behind them. Transparency providing incomplete protection when predators are specifically adapted to hunt transparent prey. Beyond this, there's another mystery of transparent eggs. Many aquatic animals lay transparent eggs, allowing researchers and predators alike to watch the embryos developing inside. The transparency may benefit the embryos by allowing oxygen to diffuse more easily through the egg membrane, or it may simply be a consequence of the egg containing mostly water and minimal light-scattering materials. Frog eggs in ponds are often transparent or translucent, and you can watch the embryos developing from single cells to swimming tadpoles, all visible through the jelly that surrounds and protects them. The developing nervous system appears first as a dark line, then as a more complex structure, and the heart begins beating visibly before the tadpole is ready to hatch. The entire drama of development plays out in full view, hidden only by being underwater and surrounded by hundreds of similar eggs. This leads to something even more remarkable about predation on transparent eggs. Some predators specialize in finding and eating eggs, and they have evolved to detect the slight optical distortions and chemical cues that transparent eggs produce. The transparency that seems to make eggs invisible actually provides only partial protection, effective against some predators but not others. Fish that feed on eggs often have excellent vision tuned to spot the subtle signs of transparent eggs, and they can clear entire spawning areas of eggs that to human eyes seem almost impossible to find. The evolutionary arms race between egg transparency and predator detection continues, each species adapting to the other's adaptations. Transparency always imperfect, and detection always improving. Not all transparent animals are passive in their transparency. The glass octopus actively enhances its invisibility by arranging its organs to minimize their visibility. This deep-sea octopus has a transparent body with rectangular eyes positioned to be less conspicuous, and its internal organs are clustered into a small, opaque area at the center of the body. The arms are almost perfectly transparent, and when the octopus spreads them wide, it appears to be mostly empty space with a small dark spot in the middle. The octopus can change the opacity of its skin slightly, becoming more or less visible depending on the lighting conditions, and it positions itself to minimize its silhouette. When threatened, it can release a cloud of bioluminescent ink that glows in the darkness, creating a decoy that distracts predators, while the transparent octopus escapes invisibly in another direction. While octopuses actively adjust their transparency, the transparent sea slug simply drifts through water, its body extensions like transparent leaves catching the current. These pelagic sea slugs have flattened bodies with multiple lobes that increase surface area, allowing them to float and drift with minimal swimming effort. The transparency makes them nearly invisible as they hang suspended in water, and their slow movements do not create the disturbances that might alert predators. The slugs feed on jellyfish, somehow immune to or tolerant of the stinging cells, and they incorporate some of the jellyfish tissue into their own bodies, the stolen cells remaining functional and providing the slug with additional defenses. The transparent body of the slug reveals these incorporated cells, visible as slight color variations in otherwise clear tissue. Beyond this, there's another mystery of transparent animals that steal color. Some transparent nudibranchs eat coral or anemones and incorporate the prey's pigments into their own bodies, developing colored patches on otherwise transparent forms. These colors may warn predators that the nudibranch has stolen defensive chemicals along with the pigments, making it toxic or distasteful. Other transparent animals that feed on colored prey show their meals through their bodies, their digestive tracts visible as colored lines or patches. The glass frog mentioned earlier becomes more visible after feeding, its transparent belly revealing the darker insects in its stomach. The transparency that provides camouflage when the animal is empty becomes a liability after eating, though the advantage of having food apparently outweighs the temporary increase in visibility. This leads to something even more remarkable about how transparency interacts with other defenses. Some transparent jellyfish have powerful stings, their nearly invisible tentacles armed with nematocysts that can cause pain or even death to animals that blunder into them. The transparency serves not as the only defense but as the first line, reducing encounters by making the jellyfish hard to see, while the sting provides backup protection for cases where camouflage fails. Other transparent animals contain toxins that make them dangerous to eat, the transparency perhaps making predators less likely to learn to recognize and avoid them, since transparent animals are harder to remember and categorize. The combination of invisibility and chemical defense provides layered protection, each strategy compensating for the limitations of the other. Not all transparent defenses involve toxins or stings. The transparent tunicate forms colonies that encrust rocks and docks, each individual like a tiny transparent barrel connected to its neighbors by shared tunic material. When disturbed, the tunicates contract, expelling water and temporarily becoming less transparent as their bodies compress. After the disturbance passes, they slowly expand again, drawing in water and returning to transparency. The colonies can cover large areas, and while individual tunicates are small, the colonies as a whole can compete effectively for space with other organisms. The transparency of individual tunicates makes the colonies appear to be gelatinous masses rather than collections of separate animals, and the colonies often go unnoticed despite their abundance. While tunicates form colonies, the transparent salp chains drift through open ocean. Each individual in the chain, a separate animal, yet all are genetically identical, born from a single parent. These chains can stretch dozens of feet, moving through water like transparent serpents, and they pulse in coordinated waves that propel the chain forward. Each individual filters water independently, but the coordination of their swimming creates current patterns that benefit the whole chain. When the chain encounters rich patches of phytoplankton, all members feed simultaneously, their transparent bodies revealing the green food accumulating in their digestive systems. Eventually, the chain breaks apart, individuals going their separate ways to reproduce sexually, creating the next generation that will itself form chains. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how transparent animals sense their environment without obvious sense organs. Many transparent animals have distributed sensory systems, rather than centralized sense organs, their entire body surface sensitive to touch, chemicals, and sometimes light. The transparent hydra mentioned earlier can detect light with its entire body, contracting when exposed to bright light, even though it lacks eyes. The sensory cells are scattered throughout its transparent tissues, making the entire animal into a living sensor. This distributed sensing may be advantageous for transparent animals, since centralized sense organs would create visible concentrations of tissue that might compromise camouflage. By spreading sensors throughout the body, transparent animals maintain both sensitivity and invisibility. This leads to something even more remarkable about transparent animals in caves and the deep sea. In these permanently dark environments, transparency serves no camouflage function, since there is no light to transmit through the body. Yet many cave and deep-sea animals remain transparent or translucent. This persistence of transparency in darkness suggests that maintaining transparency costs less than developing opacity, or that the transparent tissues have other advantages beyond camouflage. Transparent tissues may be metabolically cheaper to build and maintain than opaque tissues, requiring less protein and less cellular structure. In energy-poor environments like caves and the deep sea, even small metabolic savings can provide significant advantages, making transparency beneficial even when its original function has become irrelevant. Not all deep-sea transparent animals are uniformly transparent. Many have transparent bodies but reflective silver layers on their sides, creating a combination of transparency and reflection that provides camouflage from multiple angles. When viewed from the side, the reflective layers mirror the environment, while from above or below, the transparent body allows light to pass through. This dual strategy provides protection from predators approaching from any direction, transparency and reflection, working together to reduce visibility. The hatchetfish exemplifies this approach, with a transparent body, large tubular eyes pointing upward, and brilliant silver sides that reflect the faint downwelling light. From below, the fish is nearly invisible against the dimly lit surface, while from the side, it mirrors its surroundings, its actual body shape obscured by reflected light. While hatchetfish combine transparency with reflection, the transparent lanternfish adds bioluminescence to the mix, its body translucent and dotted with light organs that glow blue-green. These fish perform daily vertical migrations, descending to deep water during the day and ascending toward the surface at night to feed. The bioluminescence serves multiple purposes, including counter-illumination, mate attraction, and species recognition. Different species have different patterns of light organs, making them distinguishable to each other even when their transparent bodies make them hard to see. The lanternfish are among the most abundant vertebrates on Earth, with billions inhabiting the ocean's midwater, and their transparent bodies and bioluminescent displays represent one of evolution's most successful strategies for life in open water. Beyond this, there's another mystery of transparent animals in different life stages. Some animals are opaque as adults, but transparent as juveniles, or vice versa. The transparency may serve different functions at different life stages, protecting vulnerable young, while adults rely on size, speed, or other defenses. The glass eel mentioned earlier is transparent during its long larval stage and its journey from ocean to freshwater, but it gradually develops adult coloration as it matures in rivers or lakes. The timing of this transition varies geographically and individually, some eels remaining translucent longer than others. The factors that trigger the transition from transparent to pigmented are not fully understood, likely involving a combination of age, size, environmental cues, and hormonal changes. This leads to something even more remarkable about the evolution of transparency loss. Some transparent animals have descendants that evolved to become opaque, developing pigmentation as they adapted to environments where transparency no longer provided advantages. Cavefish that descended from transparent surface-dwelling ancestors lost their transparency, along with their eyes and pigmentation, the lack of light making visual camouflage irrelevant. Other transparent animals that moved into heavily vegetated habitats evolved colors and patterns that provide better camouflage against complex backgrounds than transparency alone could offer. The evolution of transparency is not one way, and lineages can gain and lose transparency as their environments and selection pressures change over time. Not all transparent animals evolved transparency independently. Some inherited transparency from transparent ancestors and simply retained it, while others evolved it freshly in response to new environmental pressures. Distinguishing between these scenarios requires examining evolutionary relationships and comparing transparent species with their opaque relatives. When closely related species differ in transparency, researchers can sometimes identify the specific genetic changes that produce transparency, revealing that sometimes only a few mutations separate visible from invisible. These genetic studies show that transparency can evolve relatively quickly when natural selection strongly favors invisibility, and that the same genes involved in transparency have been modified independently in different lineages. Evolution finding similar solutions to the same problem across different branches of the tree of life. While genetics explains how transparency arises, physics explains its limitations. Perfect transparency is impossible in living tissue because biological molecules inherently interact with light, absorbing some wavelengths and scattering others. Even pure water is not perfectly transparent, absorbing and scattering small amounts of light over long distances. Living tissues contain proteins, lipids, and other molecules that interact with light more strongly than water does, making perfect transparency impossible. The most transparent animals simply minimize these interactions, using proteins and structures that interact minimally with visible light, arranging their tissues to reduce light scattering and eliminating pigments and particles that would absorb or reflect light. The result approaches, but never quite achieves perfect invisibility. Transparency always being a matter of degree rather than an absolute state. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how transparent animals appear under different lighting conditions. An animal that is nearly invisible in bright, diffuse light may become quite visible in direct sunlight, its body casting shadows or creating bright spots where light refracts through curved surfaces. Transparent animals photographed with backlighting appear as dark silhouettes, while those photographed with front lighting may show highlights and reflections that reveal their shapes. The effectiveness of transparency thus depends on the lighting environment, working best in certain conditions and failing in others. Transparent animals may actively seek lighting conditions where their transparency works best, staying in shaded areas or in deep water where light is diffuse and directionality is minimal. This leads to something even more remarkable about how predators detect transparent prey. Some predators hunt transparent animals using senses other than vision, detecting them through vibrations in the water, electrical fields, or chemical cues. The transparency that makes an animal invisible to visual predators provides no protection against predators that hunt by other means. Dolphins use echolocation to find transparent prey, their sonar clicks reflecting off the animal's body regardless of its optical properties. Electric fish detect the distortions that transparent prey create in electrical fields, locating prey that they cannot see. The evolution of transparency is thus only advantageous against predators that rely primarily on vision, and transparent animals remain vulnerable to predators with other sensory strategies. Not all predators are fooled even by excellent transparency. Some fish and birds have such acute vision that they can detect the subtle distortions and aberrations that transparent animals create as light passes through their bodies. These predators may also recognize the opaque parts that even transparent animals possess, the eyes and guts, and other structures that remain visible. Predators that specialize in hunting transparent prey have learned to spot these telltale signs, training their attention on the small clues that reveal otherwise invisible animals. The interaction between transparent prey and visual predators drives continued evolution in both groups, prey becoming more transparent while predators become better at detecting transparency's inevitable imperfections. While some predators specialize in detecting transparency, others avoid the problem by hunting in ways where transparency is irrelevant. Predators that ambush from below may see transparent prey silhouetted against the bright surface, while those hunting at night may rely on bioluminescence or other cues. The transparent animal that is invisible during the day may become conspicuous at night, when it produces its own light, or when its movement creates bioluminescent flashes in the water around it. Transparency thus provides protection that varies with time of day, location, and the types of predators present, the effectiveness of the camouflage shifting constantly as conditions change. Beyond this, there's another mystery of why more animals are not transparent. If transparency provides such effective camouflage, why have not all animals evolved it? The answer lies in the costs and constraints of transparency. Achieving transparency requires giving up pigments that serve important functions, including protection from ultraviolet light, thermal regulation, and visual communication. Transparent animals may be more vulnerable to sun damage, may have difficulty regulating their body temperature in bright sunlight, and may struggle to communicate with members of their own species. The physiology required for transparency may also limit metabolic options or restrict the types of tissues and structures the animal can build. Transparency is not a universal solution, but a specialized adaptation that works well in specific circumstances while creating problems in others. This leads to something even more remarkable about transparent animals that change their transparency. Some transparent animals can adjust their opacity, becoming more or less visible depending on circumstances. Certain transparent squid can activate pigment cells in their skin, temporarily becoming opaque for communication or display, then returning to transparency afterward. The cephalopods that possess this ability have sophisticated nervous control over their skin, allowing rapid changes that most other animals cannot achieve. The ability to switch between transparent and opaque provides flexibility, allowing the animal to be invisible when threatened, but visible when displaying to potential mates or rivals. This dynamic camouflage represents a more advanced solution than permanent transparency, though it requires neural and muscular systems complex enough to control the transformation. Not all transparency changes are under the animal's control. Some transparent animals become less transparent as they age, their tissues gradually accumulating materials that reduce optical clarity. The process is slow, taking months or years, and may simply reflect the difficulty of maintaining perfect transparency throughout a long lifespan. Young animals may be more transparent than old ones, their tissues fresher and less cluttered with accumulated metabolic byproducts. This age-related decline in transparency may explain why most highly transparent animals are small and short-lived, since maintaining transparency becomes increasingly difficult over time and with increasing body size. While aging affects transparency, so does health. Parasites living inside transparent animals may be visible through the host's body, revealing infection to observers and potentially to predators. A transparent animal carrying visible parasites may be more conspicuous than a healthy transparent individual, the parasite creating spots of opacity where none should exist. Some parasites even alter their host's behavior, potentially making infected animals more vulnerable to predation, a strategy that benefits parasites, whose life cycles require them to move from one host species to another. The transparency that usually protects the host thus becomes a liability when parasites are present, broadcasting infection status to anyone who looks closely. Beyond this, there's another mystery of transparent animals as indicators of ocean health. Because many transparent animals are planktonic and sensitive to changes in water chemistry, temperature, and pollution, their populations can indicate environmental conditions. Decreases in transparent plankton populations may signal pollution, warming, acidification, or other stresses, while increases may indicate favorable conditions or release from predation pressure. Scientists monitor transparent animal populations as part of broader efforts to understand ocean ecosystem health, these nearly invisible creatures serving as sentinels for changes that might otherwise go unnoticed until more obvious effects appear. The fragility that makes transparent animals vulnerable also makes them useful indicators. Their sensitivity registering environmental changes before larger, more robust species show effects. This leads to something even more remarkable about studying transparent animals. Researchers can observe internal anatomy and physiology in living transparent animals without dissection or invasive procedures, watching organs function and blood flow without harming the animal. Scientists have used transparent fish and tadpoles to study development, watching organs form and neural connections establish in real time. The transparent zebrafish has become an important model organism in research precisely because its transparency allows observation of processes that remain hidden in opaque animals. Drug testing, disease research, and basic studies of how organs function all benefit from the ability to see inside living animals, and transparency provides this window naturally without requiring surgery or imaging technology. Not all transparent animals are equally useful for research. Some are too small, too fragile, or too difficult to maintain in laboratory conditions. Others live in environments that are hard to replicate in aquaria or experimental setups. The transparent animals that have become model organisms are those that combine transparency with hardiness, ease of breeding, and tolerance for laboratory conditions. The glass catfish, despite its excellent transparency, has not become a major research model because it is relatively difficult to breed in captivity and requires specific water conditions. Meanwhile, zebrafish, which are only moderately transparent, have become enormously important research animals because they are easy to maintain, breed prolifically, and develop rapidly. Transparency is advantageous for research, but not sufficient by itself to make an animal a good model organism. While researchers study transparent animals, artists and photographers find inspiration in their ethereal beauty. Images of transparent jellyfish glowing against dark water have become iconic, their forms suggesting alien creatures from other worlds, even though they are perfectly terrestrial. The combination of familiarity and strangeness draws human attention. Transparent animals simultaneously recognizable as living creatures and puzzlingly different from the opaque animals we encounter daily. This aesthetic appeal has made transparent animals popular subjects for nature documentaries, aquarium exhibits, and scientific illustration, their beauty serving to engage public interest in marine biology and conservation. The creatures that evolved transparency to avoid being seen have ironically become highly visible in human culture, celebrated precisely for the characteristic that makes them invisible in their natural habitats. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how children respond to transparent animals. Young children sometimes struggle to understand transparent animals. Their developing concept of what constitutes an animal challenged by creatures that seem to be mostly empty space. Showing a child a transparent animal can prompt questions about what makes something alive, whether invisible things can be real, and how we know something exists if we cannot clearly see it. These questions touch on fundamental issues in philosophy and perception. And transparent animals provide concrete examples that make abstract concepts tangible. A transparent shrimp in an aquarium becomes a teaching tool, demonstrating that reality includes things we can barely see, and that life takes forms more diverse than our everyday experience suggests. This leads to something even more remarkable about cultural interpretations of transparency. In many cultures, invisible or transparent creatures feature in folklore and mythology, often portrayed as spirits, ghosts, or supernatural beings. When people encounter truly transparent animals for the first time, they sometimes describe them in supernatural terms, the animals seeming too strange to be ordinary flesh and blood. This reaction reflects how deeply our expectations about animal appearance run, our mental categories assuming that living things should be opaque and solid. Transparent animals violate these expectations, appearing to occupy a boundary category between material and immaterial, visible and invisible. The scientific explanation for transparency does not diminish this sense of wonder, but rather enhances it by revealing the complex adaptations that make such seemingly impossible creatures real. Not all wonder at transparent animals is poetic. Scientists who study these creatures experience their own form of wonder at the elegance of the adaptations and the insights they provide into evolution and ecology. The discovery that transparency has evolved independently dozens of times demonstrates the power of natural selection to find similar solutions to similar problems. The diversity of mechanisms for achieving transparency reveals the multiple pathways evolution can take toward the same goal. Each transparent animal represents a natural experiment in optics and physiology, and comparing transparent species reveals general principles about how life solves the challenge of invisibility. This scientific wonder complements, rather than replaces, aesthetic appreciation, adding layers of understanding to the visual beauty. While scientists analyze and artists celebrate, the transparent animals themselves continue their lives without awareness of human attention. The glass frog sits on its leaf, heart beating visibly, calling softly for a mate. The jellyfish pulses through water, trailing tentacles that sting without intention or malice. The glass squid hangs in the deep sea, watching upward for prey silhouettes. These animals do not know they are transparent, do not understand that their bodies transmit light, do not reflect on their own invisibility. They simply live, responding to hunger and danger and reproductive drive, their transparency as unremarkable to them as opacity is to other animals. The meanings humans assign to transparency are human constructions, interpretations imposed on creatures that exist without interpretation, living their transparent lives in immediate presence. Beyond this, there's another mystery of what it would be like to experience the world as a transparent animal. If you were a glass frog, would your transparency feel different somehow? Or would your body simply be your body, as normal to you as your current body feels now? Would you be aware of predators seeing through you, or would you simply notice when predators approached, without understanding why they sometimes seem to look past you? These questions are unanswerable, locked behind the barrier of consciousness that prevents direct access to another creature's experience. But asking them reminds us that each animal lives in a world shaped by its own sensory and cognitive capacities, experiencing reality in ways we can imagine but never truly know. This leads to something even more remarkable about limits of human perception. Even when transparent animals are quite visible to the human eye, we may not consciously register them, our brains filtering out the faint distortions and subtle shapes as noise, rather than recognizing them as creatures. We walk past aquarium tanks containing transparent animals, our eyes scanning for colorful fish, while transparent shrimp and larvae float unnoticed in the same water. Our attention is drawn to contrast and movement and color, and transparent animals provide minimal stimulus to these attention systems. They exploit not just the physics of light transmission but the psychology of attention, remaining unseen not because they are perfectly invisible but because they are below the threshold of what our minds bother to notice. Not all failures to see transparent animals reflect limitations in human perception. Sometimes they are simply well camouflaged, their transparency working exactly as evolution designed it to work. When you look at a photo of transparent animals and cannot see them until they are pointed out, you are experiencing what predators experience: the challenge of detecting prey that provides minimal visual information. The photo becomes a puzzle, training your eye to spot the subtle clues. And once you learn to see transparent animals, you begin noticing them more easily. This learning process mirrors the predator's learning, each successful detection training the visual system to recognize the patterns associated with transparent prey. While transparency hides animals from predators, it also hides them from curious humans who would simply like to observe and appreciate them. Divers and snorkelers often pass through water containing countless transparent animals without realizing they are there, the animals registering as slight blurs or not registering at all. Only when someone points out a transparent animal, outlining its shape or describing its position, do others suddenly see it, the animal snapping into focus once attention is directed appropriately. This revelation often provokes delight and surprise, the joy of discovering hidden complexity in what appeared to be empty water. The ocean contains far more life than is immediately visible, and transparent animals remind us that absence of obvious signs does not mean absence of life. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how transparent animals will fare in changing oceans. Climate change, acidification, pollution, and other human impacts are transforming marine environments, and transparent animals may be especially vulnerable to these changes. Their sensitivity to environmental conditions makes them early indicators of stress, but this same sensitivity may limit their ability to adapt to rapid change. Ocean acidification affects animals with calcium carbonate shells, including many transparent pteropods and larvae. Warming may alter the distribution of transparent plankton, shifting their ranges poleward or deeper as they track their preferred temperature ranges. The future ocean may have fewer transparent animals, or different species of them. The communities we see today potentially giving way to new assemblages adapted to novel conditions. This leads to something even more remarkable about conservation of transparent animals. Because most transparent animals are small and planktonic, traditional conservation approaches focused on protecting specific locations or populations may be less effective than addressing broader environmental issues. You cannot establish a marine protected area for transparent larvae that drift with currents across entire ocean basins. Instead, protecting transparent animals requires maintaining overall ocean health, reducing pollution, limiting warming, and preserving the complex food webs they participate in. The invisible nature of these creatures makes them easy to overlook in conservation planning. Yet they form crucial links in marine food webs, supporting the more visible animals that capture public attention and conservation funding. Not all conservation challenges involve environmental change. Some transparent animals are collected for aquarium trade or research. And while this collection is generally small-scale compared to habitat destruction and climate change, it can affect local populations of rare or endemic species. Sustainable collection practices and captive breeding programs can reduce pressure on wild populations, but not all transparent animals breed successfully in captivity. The glass catfish mentioned earlier is captive bred to some extent, reducing collection pressure on wild populations. But many transparent marine animals have complex life cycles that make captive breeding difficult or impossible with current technology. Balancing human curiosity and research needs with conservation concerns requires careful thought and ongoing adjustment as knowledge and conditions change. While conservation looks forward, the fossil record looks back, showing that transparent animals have ancient origins. Jellyfish fossils from more than 500 million years ago show that gelatinous, likely transparent animals existed in ancient oceans. Their soft bodies occasionally preserved in exceptional fossil deposits. These ancient transparent animals were part of ecosystems very different from modern ones. Yet their basic body plans and strategies persist today in their descendants. The transparency that works now apparently worked then. The fundamental physics of light transmission unchanged across 500 million years. This deep history suggests that transparency is not a fragile recent innovation, but a robust strategy that has persisted through multiple mass extinctions and dramatic environmental changes. Beyond this, there's another mystery of how many transparent species exist. Because transparent animals are hard to see and often small, many species likely remain undiscovered, especially in deep-sea and open ocean habitats that are difficult to study. Each deep-sea submersible dive reveals new species, some of them transparent, and molecular studies increasingly show that what appeared to be single, widespread species are actually multiple cryptic species that look nearly identical but are genetically distinct. The actual diversity of transparent animals is likely much higher than current species counts suggest. The catalogue of known species representing only a fraction of actual diversity. Each new species discovered adds detail to our understanding of how transparency evolves and functions, revealing new variations on the theme of invisibility. This leads to something even more remarkable about the future of transparent animal research. Advances in imaging technology allow scientists to see transparent animals more clearly than ever before, using techniques like optical coherence tomography and light sheet microscopy to visualize internal structures without dissection. Genetic tools allow researchers to identify the specific genes responsible for transparency and to understand how these genes are regulated during development. These technologies are revealing that transparency involves not just passive absence of pigments, but active cellular mechanisms that maintain tissue clarity. Future research will likely uncover additional mechanisms and reveal more about how transparency evolved and how it is maintained, each discovery adding nuance to our understanding of these nearly invisible creatures. Not all future discoveries will be purely scientific. Artists and engineers are drawing inspiration from transparent animals to develop new materials and technologies. Researchers studying the anti-reflective properties of transparent insect wings are developing coatings that reduce glare on screens and solar panels. Scientists examining how transparent animals minimize light scattering are informing the development of clearer optical materials. The mechanisms that make animals transparent are inspiring human innovations. Nature's solutions to invisibility, providing templates for human applications. These biomimetic approaches demonstrate that transparent animals have value beyond their ecological roles. Their adaptations encoding information useful for human technology. While technology looks to transparent animals for inspiration, philosophy looks to them for insight. The paradox of transparent animals, beings that exist without being visible, raises questions about the relationship between appearance and reality, between seeing and knowing. A transparent animal forces us to question what we mean when we say something is there. Whether presence requires visibility, whether existence depends on perception. These questions extend beyond transparent animals to broader issues in epistemology and ontology. But the animals provide concrete examples that make abstract philosophy tangible. The glass frog sits before you, its heart beating visibly in its chest, undeniably real yet strangely absent, simultaneously present and transparent. Beyond this, there's another mystery of personal meaning in transparent animals. What each person sees in transparent animals reflects what they bring to the observation. A child might see magic, a scientist might see adaptation, an artist might see beauty, a philosopher might see paradox. The transparent animal holds space for all these interpretations, without being diminished by any of them. It exists independent of human interpretation, yet it invites interpretation by its very strangeness. In this way, transparent animals serve as mirrors, reflecting back our own concerns and interests, even as they go about their own lives, unconcerned with human meanings. This leads to something even more remarkable about gratitude for transparent animals. These creatures that evolved to avoid being seen have given humans so much. They have provided tools for medical research that have saved countless lives. They have inspired technological innovations. They have enriched our understanding of evolution and ecology. They have created beauty that moves and inspires us. And they have done all this without intention, simply by existing, by living their invisible lives in oceans and rivers and rainforests, their transparency serving their own needs while accidentally serving ours. There is something humbling in this. A reminder that the natural world has value beyond human use, that creatures pursuing their own survival create benefits we could never have predicted or designed. Not all value can be captured in words or measured in outcomes. Sometimes the value of transparent animals lies simply in knowing they exist, in the expansion of possibility they represent. The world contains creatures made of glass and light, animals that have solved the puzzle of invisibility through chemistry and structure. This fact enriches reality, adding strangeness and wonder to a world that might otherwise seem thoroughly known and mapped. The transparent animals swimming in deep oceans and clinging to rainforest leaves remind us that mystery persists, that the unknown remains, that life is more creative and surprising than we imagine. And now the invisible creatures fade behind your thoughts. We've drifted through 100 quiet truths about transparent animals, from glass frogs with visible beating hearts, to jellyfish that pulse like living water, from squid that hang like ornaments in the deep, to fish made of crystal swimming through rivers. You are connected to this world. The ocean that holds transparent animals covers most of the planet you live on. The fresh water that sustains glass, catfish, and transparent tadpoles is the same water you drink. cycling through rivers and clouds and rain. The light that passes through transparent animals is the same light that warms your skin. You share this earth with creatures that have learned to disappear, to exist without being seen, to thrive through invisibility. Tonight, as you rest, glass frogs sit on leaves in rainforests, their hearts beating red through transparent skin. Jellyfish pulse through dark water, nearly invisible, trailing stinging tentacles. Glass squid hang motionless in the deep sea, watching upward through the darkness. Salp chains drift through ocean currents, each individual filtering water, all of them transparent. And you are safe, warm, resting in a world full of wonder, surrounded by creatures you cannot see, but that exist nonetheless. Their invisible lives continuing in oceans and rivers while you dream. The transparent animals ask nothing of you but offer everything to your imagination. They prove that existence does not require visibility, that life can be lived in transparency, that beauty can be found in what is barely there. They are lessons in subtlety, in the power of what is suggested rather than displayed, in the elegance of minimal solutions to complex problems. They invite you to look more carefully, to notice what you might otherwise miss, to appreciate the full spectrum of life, from obvious to invisible. If you're still awake, go ahead and watch the next chapter. Sleep well and dream softly. Good night.